The gavel froze in the judge's hand, and the whole courtroom stopped breathing with her, because the boy on the floor wasn't listening to her ruling anymore. He was on his knees in front of her bench, arms wrapped around a golden dog that shouldn't have been there, sobbing into its fur like the rest of the world had disappeared. 9-year-old Caleb Ross had spent 4 months without his best friend. His dog, Scout, went missing back in March, snatched from their front yard while Caleb was at school. The kind of theft nobody takes seriously until it happens to your own kid. The police called it low priority. The shelters had nothing. His mom worked 2 jobs and couldn't afford a private investigator. So Caleb did the only thing a 9-year-old could do. He made flyers. Hundreds of them. He walked the neighborhood every evening after his homework, knocking on doors, describing the white patch on Scout's chest, the way he tilted his head when you said walk. Nobody remembers when Caleb stopped smiling. His teacher noticed first the change in a boy who used to talk about his dog nonstop. Then his grades slipped. Then he stopped talking altogether. Today wasn't supposed to be about Scout at all. Today was a hearing in Judge Miriam Halloway's courtroom. A dog theft case that had finally, after months, produced a suspect. A man named Russ Denning, caught trying to resell stolen pets through an online listing. The prosecution had photos, vet records, a trail of evidence connecting Denning to at least 6 missing animals across the county. Caleb wasn't even supposed to be in the room. His mother brought him because the babysitter fell through, and she figured he'd just sit quietly in the back, like he always did now. Nobody expected the sheriff to walk in holding a leash. The dog on the other end lifted his head the second he crossed the threshold, ears standing straight up, nose working the air like he already knew. Before the sheriff could say a word of explanation, before the judge could ask what this animal was doing in her courtroom during a hearing, the dog bolted. He didn't stop for the prosecutor's table. He didn't stop for the aisle of stunned spectators. He went straight for the boy in the 3rd row, and the boy was already moving too, already falling to his knees, already crying out a name nobody in that courtroom had heard him say in weeks. Scout. If you believe a story like this deserves to be seen, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens in the next few minutes is going to stay with you. Judge Halloway had been on the bench for 22 years. She had sentenced men for things that would keep most people up at night. She thought she'd seen every kind of moment a courtroom could hold. She was wrong. She set the gavel down without finishing the strike. She rose halfway out of her chair, leaning over the bench, watching a 9-year-old boy bury his face in a dog's neck like he was trying to disappear into him. Nobody in the gallery moved. Even the bailiff, a 20-year veteran who thought he was unshakable, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. What the courtroom didn't know yet was how Scout got here. 3 weeks earlier, an animal control officer named Denise Pruitt had picked up a stray matching a description from an old flyer. One Caleb had taped to a telephone pole back in April, water-stained and half-torn by then. Denise almost drove past it. She'd seen 100 flyers like it. But something made her stop the truck and read the whole thing. She wrote down the number. It took 2 more weeks of paperwork, microchip verification, and a court order to release Scout from evidence holding, because the dog was now Exhibit C in the case against Denning. Denise could have waited for the mail to deliver the good news. Instead, she called ahead to the sheriff's department and asked a favor most people wouldn't think to ask. She wanted the boy to be there when they announced it. She wanted him to see it, not just hear it. She didn't know Caleb would already be sitting in the gallery. Judge Halloway didn't know any of this either. Not yet. All she saw was a boy who had clearly been broken by something, now put back together in real time, right in front of her bench while a defendant sat 20 feet away. She could have called for order. She could have told the bailiff to remove the dog and continue the hearing. Instead, she did something that would end up on the local news that night, something a colleague later said changed how people in that county thought about the justice system. She stepped down from the bench. She knelt beside the boy, robe pooling on the courtroom floor, and she asked him gently if this was really his dog. Caleb couldn't speak. He just nodded, over and over, his hand buried in Scout's fur like he was afraid letting go would make him vanish again. The judge looked up at Russ Denning, sitting at the defense table in his cheap suit, and something in her expression hardened. She didn't need to say his sentence out loud for the room to feel it coming. Every missing flyer, every silent dinner in the Ross house. Every night Caleb lay awake wondering if Scout was cold or hungry or scared. It was all sitting in that room now, wrapped up in one dog's collar. Denning would be sentenced 2 weeks later, the maximum the law allowed. But that wasn't the ending anyone in that courtroom remembered. What they remembered was a judge in a black robe, kneeling on a courthouse floor, watching a boy get his best friend back. What they remembered was the sheriff wiping his own eyes. What they remembered was Denise Pruitt standing quietly by the door, having said nothing about her part in it, content just to watch it happen. Caleb never let go of Scout that whole afternoon. Not during the recess. Not during the ride home. He fell asleep that night on the living room floor with his arms around his dog. And for the first time in 4 months, his mother didn't hear him crying through the wall. Sometimes justice looks like a courtroom. Sometimes it looks like a woman who stopped her truck to read a soggy piece of paper on a telephone pole. And sometimes it looks like a boy on his knees, finally whole again. If the story moved you, subscribe for more, because there are a lot more moments like this one still waiting to be told.